So let's look at some of the studies from around the world. You've probably heard of David Ferguson's study. How many of you have? Just to get an idea. Yeah, he's gotten pretty famous for this one study. He's a very interesting guy. I've had a lot of correspondence with him, and he actually was one of my outside reviewers for tenure and then promotion to full professor 2 years ago. So I consider him almost a friend. Almost a friend. He's a pro-choice rational atheist is how he describes himself, but he's a man of great integrity when it comes to the science. So in 2006, Ferguson and colleagues reported that by age 25, women with an abortion history had high rates of mental health problems. He was floored by his numbers here. He went into this study expecting to find that abortion was not any more traumatic than birth, or that it was really a benign experience, but instead found 42% were experiencing major depression, 39% had anxiety problems, 27% suicide ideation, and 6.8% had alcohol dependence. And more recently, Ferguson and colleagues published a longitudinal study. This was in 2008 in the British Journal of Psychiatry. It came out online in 2008, and I think the official publication date is 08. But in this study, he revealed that there were increased risks associated with abortion when compared to unintended pregnancy delivered. His 2006 study didn't specify unintended, so this was an improvement. It was the same basic data, but he found suicide ideation, there was an increased risk of 61%, alcohol dependence, 188% increase over unintended pregnancy delivered, illicit drug dependence, 185% increased risk, major depression was 31%, and anxiety disorders, 113% increased risk. Published in the same issue of the British Journal of Psychiatry was a study conducted by Australian researchers Dingle and colleagues. Women with an abortion history had almost twice the risk for 12-month depression compared to women who had not aborted. Abortion history is also associated with an almost 3 times greater risk for experiencing a lifetime illicit drug use disorder and twice the risk for alcohol use disorder. Norway, Norwegian sociologist Peterson published 2 studies linking abortion to mental health problems. Data for both studies was from the Youth in Norway longitudinal study, which is nationally representative also and includes over 700 respondents. I've had a little bit of correspondence with Dr. Peterson around the time that the American Psychological Association Task Force report came out, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but several of us, the conclusions were ridiculous. It was a very biased summary of what is known, and so Dr. Ferguson and I actually spearheaded this letter to the APA, a petition letter, and we had some correspondence with Dr. Peterson trying to get him on board with our letter, and he was on holiday, so he wasn't interested in helping, and then I haven't heard from him since. This is so politically incorrect, and so a lot of people don't want to go near it, academics, so it's hard. Women who aborted in this study had increased risks of nicotine dependence, 400% increase, alcohol problems, 180%, marijuana use, 360% increased risk, and other illicit drugs, 670%. And of all the outcomes that have been measured, the substance abuse variables seem to be the most robust. You see very high rates across many, many studies, and it makes sense because many women may not want to share their experience with a professional or even family members, and so grabbing, an anti-anxiety pill from a doctor, you don't have to actually explain, what your issue is. It's easy to obtain meds in our society, legal and illegal, and alcohol is an easy fix, so that way they can numb the pain without having to share the experience. So it makes a lot of sense that we're seeing this. It's not obviously not a healthy way to cope with it, but it's a common way.